Have you ever been walking down the street with your best bro, and while you're walking you accidentally touch hands? You think to yourself, that was weird, but I'm not gay. You are.
To turn the tide against the Allies, the Soviets activated a desperate measure in their final hours, traversing backwards in time to erase Einstein, the technological herald of their sworn enemy, much like the professor himself did so many years ago to prevent the tragedy of World War II. What Einstein learned back then, however, is that playing with time would only delay or worsen the inevitable. The Soviets would soon learn this lesson as well, for in their foolish temporal manipulation, they have created a new superpower in the world.
ようこそ皆さん、ようこそフィルシー・フランクショーへ。今日は
Who knows what nightmares we have
俺の
created?
クローゼットの中にユダヤ人が2人いるんだ。
The Empire of the Rising Sun struck with haste on multiple fronts, conquering large chunks of territory across the Motherland. Even now, many cities are still under their assault, one of which is Leningrad, the beating heart of the Soviet Union. The Empire's assault must be repelled. As the first mission of the Soviet campaign, it serves as an introductory level for new players to begin familiarizing themselves with the various types of units at theirs or their enemies' disposal. Naturally, you would think that this mission is quite easy. Well, yes but no. A big reason why I held off attempting Red Alert 3 Deathlist for so long was that the main campaign is co-op, so I have to either find another person to do this challenge with me, or attempt it alone with an AI co-commander. While yes, there are some commands you can issue to the AI co-commander to give you a degree of agency over them, they are simply not programmed to try to preserve their units. Therefore, it becomes significantly harder or downright impossible in missions that require the combined income and production of both commanders. Thankfully, I managed to convince a few good friends of mine to help me out with this undertaking. Some of them are relatively inexperienced when it comes to RTS though, much less Red Alert 3. This made earlier levels much harder than they would have been with two experienced players, as I had to juggle between teaching them game mechanics and microing my own units.
Don't get too close, don't get too close. No! Oh! Alright, restart.
After eliminating the initial Imperial warriors on the island, we're each given the funds to train some flak troopers to defend against waves of enemy assaults consisting of tsunami tanks, VXs, and tank busters. It seems EA finally learned their lesson from CNC3 and separated the balancing between multiplayer and campaign, as the flak troopers cost $300 instead of $400, meaning that we can afford the originally intended number of 6 flak troopers instead of 4. In fact, this comes with a second benefit of making it easier to promote the flak troopers. Similar to the veterancy system in previous games, units would have to destroy enemies with total cost greater than 3 times their own to promote one level. This means that the $300 flak trooper can promote one level with every kill on a tsunami tank, the Empire's $1,000 main battle tank. Although enemy forces fire back at our forces while on the move, they will focus fire the fortress once in range and refrain from switching aggro any further. This means as long as we position our infantry so as not to get crushed by the enemy tanks, we should have a very easy time repelling the assaults and racking up some heroic veterancy. Garrison the initial conscripts from the co-commander into the neutral buildings to deal with the tank busters, and Natasha can help out too. Once the first wave passes, a secondary objective appears where we have to save the Hermitage. Since this is a no structures lost run as well, we have to save it. We can use the Bullfrog's special ability to launch Natasha and some flak troopers to the other side. Her sniper rifle will then make short work of the Imperial infantry there. After the deed is done, launch the boys back with the Bullfrog. The final phase of the mission tasks us with destroying 8 Shogun battleships while enduring constant harassment from tsunami tanks. Luckily, we're granted access to the magnetic satellite support power, which summons a controllable magnetic beam capable of sucking units into space. A big bonus of having a human co-commander is that we can both use the support power, allowing us to neutralize key enemy forces before they even pose a threat to us. Due to their close positioning, a single use of magnetic satellite is able to take out 2 Shogun battleships. Therefore, we can use the 2 magnetic satellites to take out 2 groups of battleships while Natasha deals with the remaining 2 alone. With that, the first mission is finished. Despite the victory at Leningrad, the Union is still suffering heavy losses as a whole, with the Empire
thrusting deeply into the Motherland's tender nether regions.
and nearly reaching Moscow. To counter this offensive, we're tasked with advancing towards the Kresna 45 launch facility to send a support satellite into space, as well as repelling the Imperial forces nearby. We're given a limited army in this mission, with only 3 Sickos and Natasha at the start. To ensure sustainability in our battles, we must try to promote our units as soon as possible. As we move towards the launch site, we could rescue some Tesla troopers playing whack-a-mole with the tank busters, as well as some warbears trapped in cages. We will encounter a large group of tsunami tanks as well as jet tengus at this choke point, but we can use the magnetic satellite to remove the majority of them. The tengus will react to the usage and actively try to dodge the beam, but we could simply use Natasha to pick up the stragglers. Yeah, let me kill those guys.
Enemy units detected.
Oh, okay, maybe kill the tank buster for me though.
Yeah.
Alright, thanks. Alright, now these guys are fucked. Okay, there's 2 more.
2 more.
Magnetic satellite on the second blockade, and we reach the launch site relatively unharmed. After a brief cutscene where the ambushing Imperial forces reveal themselves, we enter the second phase of the mission, where we're tasked with wiping out all the Imperial troops in the area. Problem is, the Imperial commander will begin dropping an endless wave of balloon bombs on our troops. While they are slow, their presence means we have to stay on the move constantly. Although there are veteran secrets at the back of the launch site, capturing them takes too much time and would only slow us down. Instead, we move towards the enemy immediately, use the Tesla troopers against the tanks, and Natasha against everything else. Once we destroy the Imperial construction yard and power generator, we will trigger a cutscene where the enemy commando, Eureka Omega, will charge towards us accompanied by a substantial number of Imperial warriors. Simply order our Sickos to jump right on top of the enemy infantry group to stun them all, and use Natasha to finish them off. The mission at the Kresna 45 launch site was a success, stopping the Imperial offensive towards Moscow dead in its tracks. To truly regain the upper hand against the invaders, however, we must retake the port of Vladivostok, which is currently being used as a strategic base for supplying the powerful Imperial Navy. To begin building an army, we must first rid this island free of Imperial forces, and we have to do it with 6 bullfrogs and a bunch of basic infantry.
Pleased to meet you, comrade. My name is Jana. I will be supporting you today with the most loyal force in the Union. Let us take back our port now from the impudent Japanese.
Which is quite problematic considering that Imperial forces are spread across the entire island, leaving no room for safe landing. Eject all of our infantry simultaneously at this location on the island. As the infantry are about to land, move our bullfrogs forward to draw aggro from the Imperial warriors and tengus, and let the infantry finish them off. Then, move the useless bears away and take out the 2 power generators to depower the defender turrets. Draw aggro from 2 of the 4 tengus left with our conscripts, then kite back and destroy them with the flak troopers. The remaining 2 tengus will fly away to call for reinforcements. Camp their entrance here with bullfrogs and flak troopers to kill most of them before they get to land, and we should be able to face tank the remaining ones without losing a unit. This is not the end of the island cleaning operation, as we still have to contend with the Imperial miners, who activate their machine gun mode once aggroed, easily slicing through our infantry. To safely dispatch them, we need the combined firepower of all the flak troopers of both commanders. Time our attacks on each miner at the same time to destroy them without suffering retaliation. Rinse and repeat for the other side, then destroy the remaining structures to finish phase 1 of the mission. In phase 2, we get access to MCVs and are finally able to build up a base of our own, including our own navy. Sounds great, except that the only naval unit we can build is the Stingray, a fragile vessel armed with Tesla coils. Although they are great against tengus, they cannot survive a head-on confrontation against tsunami tanks. Worse yet, the Empire is also fielding their Yari mini-sub in this area. These submarines have the special ability to kamikaze themselves into enemies, insta-killing my Stingrays.
Yes. Let's
Our base is under attack.
They one-shot buildings too?
Enemy units detected.
Yeah, let's go, fucker.
Full discharge.
Units lost.
While I am able to repel naval assaults from the enemy thanks to being able to build defensive buildings on the water, the presence of these little fuckers severely limits offensive capabilities from our side. Not all odds are stacked against us, however, as we still have a card up our sleeves: ore collectors. Sneak an engineer to the bottom right area of the map to capture this dock, which enables auto repair on our naval vessels as well as our ore collectors. Then, draw aggro from the Yari sub-patrols with our ore collector. By activating its special ability, the ore collector will encase itself in a layer of reactive armor, dramatically reducing the damage it receives. This allows us to face tank the Yari mini-subs with our miners, which triggers them so hard that they kamikaze themselves, dealing a trivial amount of damage to our miners. Note that this suicidal behavior is very inconsistent. In all of our attempts, the Ore Collector is able to trigger 2 Yari mini-subs to commit suicide if they are very close to each other, but when facing only a single Yari mini-sub, the suicidal tendencies just completely stop working, meaning that I had to resort to either using Magnetic Satellite or a well-timed barrage from my Stingrays to remove the threat. Still, being able to force the 2 patrolling Yari mini-subs to commit suicide is more than enough for our plans. Once we produce a couple Stingrays and Ore Collectors, use the Co-Commander's orbital drop ability to demolish the Imperial generators powering the turrets defending this dock. Draw aggro from the Yari subs with our Ore Collectors, and either force them to commit Sudoku or suck them into space. Then swiftly move in and destroy the Imperial dock before it can rebuild the destroyed subs. Destroying the dock lets us reclaim 2 Dreadnoughts, which are powerful long-range bombardment vessels, a much-needed addition to our limited arsenal for the next part of this mission. Before we move inland, we have to deal with the Shogun battleships at the top left area of the map, draw aggro from the Imperial capital ships using Ore Collectors, and casually sink them with the Dreadnoughts we just obtained. After this, we're asked to eliminate the remaining Imperial facilities on land. I decided to capture this Imperial mecha bay here to get some Tengus for later usage. Once we destroy the final mecha bay, a cutscene will trigger, revealing the final objective we must destroy. Before that though, we must tackle this massive attack wave heading towards our base at the bottom right side of the map, consisting of numerous tsunami tanks, VXs, and Tengus. Lucky for us, the attack wave doesn't react to magnetic satellites before all their units are rallied to their initial waypoint, meaning that we can neutralize a significant portion of the attack wave with our support powers. The stragglers are then easily dealt with using Stingrays and flak turrets. With that out of the way, we approach the palace at the top right corner of the map. Drop an orbital bomb on the palace first, which triggers a nanoswarm deployment, rendering the palace temporarily invulnerable. Furthermore, a reinforcement group consisting of several Imperial warriors and a King Oni will arrive to defend the palace, suck the King Oni off with a mag satellite, and destroy the defender turrets with our Dreadnoughts, then finish the mission with our Tengus. While we were busy battling the Empire of the Rising Sun, the Allies were licking their wounds, reorganizing themselves in preparation for a counteroffensive on the Soviets. To put a stop to their plans, we must take over the city of Geneva in the neutral country of Switzerland, the Allies' command center in the European theater. Our victory here would send the Allied command and control right back into disarray, preventing them from striking back at the Soviet Union. Due to the limited availability of my friend, I had to call in a new commander starting on the 4th Soviet mission. Say hello to Kevin.
Oh my god!
It's J.K. Simmons.
The mission itself is segmented into 2 phases. The first phase involves destroying the outlying Allied support port in the city, after which the map will expand and reveal the main Allied base that must be removed. While there is the secondary objective of capturing banks to increase our funding, they're mostly located deep within enemy positions, and honestly, money becomes less and less of an issue as the game goes on due to the nature of this challenge. As such, we will be ignoring the ones located inside the enemy bases, and only capture the outlying ones. The mission starts us off with 1 commander on land and 1 commander on sea, meaning that we are forced to rely on the piss-weak Soviet Navy once again. But unlike the previous mission, we don't get access to a dock this time around to provide sustain to our vessels. And the Crusher Crane, our other main means of repair, is still locked out of our arsenal, meaning that our only source of healing this game would be from heroic veterancy and the Hammer Tank's Leech Beam. Not all news is bad, however, as we do gain access to the powerful Tesla Tower to aid in our defense. To start, we must fortify our base against enemy assaults first. A few well-placed Tesla Towers should be sufficient for the task. Roughly 2 minutes after the game starts, a cutscene will play, introducing the enemy commander, as well as Chrono shifting in an assault destroyer and a carrier. Luckily, we can rely on the reactive armor of the Ore Collector to face tank the Hornets while we use the 4 Akula sub reinforcement to destroy the carrier. Immediately move towards the Allied dock afterwards, and use both commanders' orbital drops to destroy the dock before it can produce any more naval vessels against us. Eliminate the remaining enemies nearby and start chipping away at the Supply Port Authority building with our Stingrays. Additional enemy forces will be chrono shifted in to protect the structure as it is being damaged, but our Akula subs should make short work of them. The destruction of the supply port will bring an end to any further chrono shifting of Allied carriers, relieving a major issue off our shoulder. Clear the waters of Allied filth, then bring our MCV over to set up an expansion site and begin producing hammer tanks. On the surface, the hammer tank seems like a pretty standard unit with its main cannon, but its special ability, the Leech Beam, is the key to solving this mission. The Leech Beam has a much higher range than the main cannon. In fact, it can even outrange Allied infantry garrisoned in neutral structures. This factor alone allows our co-commander to clear the numerous enemy garrisons within the city with ease. Additionally, the leech beam, when used on a vehicle or building, will siphon away their armor to gradually heal itself. An interesting note here is that the healing property of the leech beam applies not just against enemy targets, but also any viable target, meaning that we could order the hammer tanks to leech, say, our construction yard, to heal themselves, granting us much needed sustainability in a prolonged fight like this. Once we push up the high ground, use orbital drop to destroy the allied barracks to remove the pesky infantry from the equation. Then eliminate the war factory and the remaining enemy forces in the area. Be sure to leave their construction yard alive, as we don't want to proceed to the next phase of the mission yet. Bring our MCV up the high ground to create another expansion site, and take over the enemy's ore fields. Then begin constructing Tesla towers along the eastern edge of the map. While they're building, produce a few more ore collectors and place them in front of the Tesla towers. Once we're done, destroy the allied construction yard to trigger the next phase, where the main allied base will be revealed in the top right corner, and we must destroy it with the help of General Krukov, who appears in the bottom right corner. As soon as the cutscene finishes, a carrier and assault destroyer will show up along the top right edge of the map. A single mag satellite usage is sufficient for dealing with them, which will allow our Akula subs to immediately take out the allied dock before it ramps up the production. The bigger problem lies in the bottom corner of the map. When the cutscene finishes, a large allied attack wave including numerous Guardian tanks and several Athena cannons will head towards Krukov's base and clash with his troops. Now, listen, before I started this part, I did try really hard to save all of Krukov's troops from dying, and I was pretty successful with it, drawing aggro away from the attack wave with my Tesla towers and ore collectors, then eliminating them with orbital drops and mag satellites. But do you know how Krukov repaid my kindness? With this.
Alright, so far so good.
Yo, what the? What? He destroyed my tank!
It was there and then when I decided that his forces were no longer under my protection. Taking on the Allied HQ itself is actually pretty easy, as we're granted access to the V4 rocket launchers in the second phase of the mission. Use them to demolish the Spectrum towers guarding the base, and level the structures with our hammer tanks. Mag Satellite can deal with any Athenas the allies may possess, and an orbital drop or two on their production facilities quickly stops any further production. Our previous attack on Geneva was quite successful, but more ill news arrived from Europe. The Allied scientists are conducting experiments on a new kind of superweapon in Mykonos, Greece, and their research is nearing its completion. We must conduct a raid on this science facility to study the technology for our own use. The objectives are simple: destroy the Allied island bases and expand on top of them, capture the science lab, then eliminate the final Allied base after the map expansion. Starting from this mission is when we get access to a lot of the core components required for later missions of the run: the Crusher Crane, the Twin Blades, and the MiGs. The availability of the first one means we finally have access to a reliable form of repair, and the maneuverability of the air units means we don't have to deal with the janky movement of ground units. This mission, in particular, incentivizes the use of the newly unlocked air units, as the Allied islands are protected by numerous Spectrum towers that can 1 or 2 shot our ground forces. Move towards the bottom right island first to destroy the Allied tech inhibitor. Orbital drop the boot camp on the island to remove the Javelin soldiers, then depower the base with our Twin Blades. Rack up some veterancy on the Twin Blades using the remaining structures, and we can even capture the Allied Conyard if we want to. Once the tech inhibitor is destroyed, we gain access to the fearsome dreadnoughts, a handful of which will allow us to easily clear out the remaining 2 Allied bases. While our Sputniks move in to expand onto these islands, the Allied Navy will begin retaliating against our forces with carriers, hydrofoils, and destroyers. A combination of our arsenal is required to deal with the attack waves. Eliminate the hydrofoils and assault destroyers with our Akula subs or mag satellites to give our Twin Blades and Dreadnoughts free reign over the carriers. A few Tesla towers can handle the few stragglers that manage to pass through our blockade. When our defense is solidified, we can begin our offensive. Use Twin Blades and Orbital Drop to take out the docks and the construction yard to stifle their production. Then level the rest of the base using Dreadnoughts. Once we capture the science lab, the map will expand and reveal the final Allied base in the top right corner of the map, complete with an array of production structures ready to pump out a constant stream of units against us. Immediately rush towards the enemy base before they can get the production going. Ignore the outlying turrets and eliminate the few javelins guarding their interior airspace, then target down the airfields first to prevent the allies from building Apollo fighters, giving us complete air superiority. The rest of the base will fall like dominoes after this. After suffering 2 major defeats, the Allies decided to abandon most of Europe and gather their remaining forces in the Von Essling airbase in Iceland. We're tasked with eradicating the Allied forces here to completely cripple the remaining defense efforts of Europe. We start the mission with a whopping 100,000 credits, basically letting us build whatever we want. Problem is that once General Krukov arrives on the battlefield, he will requisition the remainder of our funds, resetting it to 0. This means we have to try to spend as much money as possible before he arrives. Begin spamming crusher cranes with our construction yard to get several production queues running at the same time. Line a top side of our base with Tesla towers and flat cannons as we queue up several airfields, super reactors, a battle lab, a dock, and our newest toy, the Iron Curtain device. If we move fast enough, we should have time to afford a line of near impenetrable defenses, as well as a sizable army consisting of twin blades and MiGs. Then, piece of shit Krukov arrives and siphons away our remaining funds, but this is only the beginning of his treachery. Several minutes after Krukov's arrival, Premier Cherdenko will announce the general as the betrayer who made an attempt on his life, turning him hostile against our forces. To prevent Krukov from interfering with our battles against the Allies, we will weaken him before he turns on us. Start by killing off his anti-air units, then destroy his super reactors with our twin blades. Pull back the twin blades before the final hit and let the delay damage from the rocket bursts finish the reactors off. Once depowered, Krukov will struggle to rebuild his structures, take out his production facilities and any subsequent power reactors he produces, then camp our twin blades near the VIP bunker and the construction yard. Once the cutscene triggers and the invulnerability wears off, immediately destroy the 2 vital structures to take Krukov out of the game. After which, the remainder of his forces will fall under our control. There is no room for rest, however, as his defeat triggers yet another cutscene, where the Allies reveal their newest superweapon, the Proton Collider, and begins conducting air raids on us using sentry bombers and Apollo fighters. We already have countermeasures in place though, so worry not. Move Krukov's forces to the back and fend off the pursuing Apollo jets with our MiGs. Construct a new line of flat cannons on the right side to defend them against the sneaky sentry bombers as well. As for the new superweapon, well, the Allies forgot how to repair their buildings, meaning that we can easily destroy the Proton Collider with 2 waves of orbital drops before it gets to even fire once. While the immediate threats are resolved, the rest of the mission will soon become a slow grind to the finish line, as we still have to contend with a powerful Allied navy. Again, we settle into a routine, defend against carriers using flat cannons and mag satellites while waiting for our Iron Curtain to finish charging, then use the Iron Curtain on a handful of dreadnoughts and use them to chip away at the Allied production buildings. Once enough damage is done, depower the enemy base and clean up the rest with our twin blades escorted by MiGs.
Welcome.
With the Allied base neutralized, the Soviet Union turns its attention back to the Empire of the Rising Sun. Premier Cherdenko himself gives us our next order, the assassination of Emperor Yoshiro. At the beginning, we conduct a massive paradrop over the Imperial Palace located at the base of Mount Fuji. Nearly all of our initial forces are wiped out, however, resulting in the loss of 52 units in total, leaving us with only a bear and a conscript. Since these deaths were part of a cutscene, they will not count towards the challenge despite showing up in the end screen. From here, we have to make our way towards the Emperor's location.
You want me to go alone?
True, we only have a single conscript and a bear, but this segment of the mission is tailored with that in mind, making the assassination a trivial matter.
Did you think it would be so easy to kill a god? You will bow for forgiveness before this is over.
Unfortunately, the Emperor we just killed was in fact a decoy, and the real one was hiding somewhere else in the palace all along, so we have to kill him again. In phase 2 of the mission, we're each given a construction yard and 2 apocalypse tanks to build up a strike force. Additionally, every few minutes, one of the 3 top Imperial commanders, Shinzo, Naomi, and Kenji, will arrive on the battlefield with their own construction vehicle, gradually ramping up the pressure against us. We must eliminate all 3 commanders before we can tackle the Emperor himself. These new apocalypse tanks under our disposal are powerful weapons of war, each a force to be reckoned with. The Empire will attack us with large waves of tsunami tanks, Tengus, VXs, and King Onis. But the 2 apocalypse tanks and a few base defenses can easily beat them back without breaking a sweat, saving us the precious funds required to mass up our air force. Since Shinzo, the commander in the middle of the map, arrives first and his base is protected by a wave force tower, he cannot be cheesed, but the same cannot be said for the other 2 commanders. Rush out a group of twin blades and MiGs as soon as possible, as a few minutes after Shinzo arrives, Naomi's units will arrive from the top corner of the map as well. along with a slew of nanocores ready to be unpacked. Focus down the fragile nanocores with our twin blades escorted by MiGs. While the enemy Tengus and Rocket Angels may not be much of a threat against our MiGs, their VXs certainly are. Luckily, we can use the mag satellite as a deterrent against the VXs. While the AI will actively try to dodge the beams, this breaks their formation, making it easier to pick them off one at a time. Once we take out Naomi's construction yard and production buildings, she's basically neutralized, so we're not in a hurry to destroy her VIP bunker. Retreat, repair, and do the same thing to Kenji by sneaking our air force along the left edge of the map. Tank the outlying turret attacks with our promoted twin blades to pass through without losses. Once the two backup commanders are dealt with, Shinzo shouldn't stand much of a chance against us alone for much longer. Slowly chip away at his base with our air units and support powers until he capitulates as well.
They will suffer.
Silence, Wedge.
Once all three commanders are down, the mission enters Phase 3 and reveals the Emperor's personal guard forces. We can complete the secondary objective first by taking out the power generators near the top right area of the map. Our heroic twin blades and MiGs and support powers should make our battles against enemy anti-air forces a lot easier at this point. After depowering the entire enemy base, march our twin blade armies into the enemy base and wipe it clean. Then rescue the conscript and bear that were captured in Phase 1. Not one man should be left behind. Instead of destroying the palace with our twin blades, we need to bring our apocalypse tanks forward instead. Clump them together and demolish the palace, which reveals the Emperor's true form.
You have insulted me in my own garden. Now you will have to deal with me personally.
Drop an iron curtain on our pox to finish him off.
Father! What have you done, you filthy savages? Have you no honor?
With the death of their emperor, the Empire of the Rising Sun swiftly fell against the might of the Soviet Union. All that is left are the Allied nations. With his silver tongue, Premier Cherdenko has somehow tricked the Allies into believing that the Soviet people are wary of war and are looking to sign a peace treaty. The two parties have agreed to meet at the Easter Island in the Pacific Ocean for a peace negotiation. Of course, this is all an elaborate ruse to ambush the Allies, and we're responsible for setting up this ambush. We're given 5 minutes at the start to build up an ambush force until the arrival of the Allied emissary. During this time, Allied escorts will gradually arrive on the battlefield. Attacking them before the 5-minute countdown finishes will immediately result in a loss, so no cheesing is possible. As is with tradition, we must rush out a group of twin blades and MiGs first, then move our twin blades right on top of the Allied escorts to prepare for the ambush. The Allied naval vessels are segmented into 2 groups, one for each commander to handle. Each group contains 2 hydrofoils, which are deadly to our air force if not handled correctly. Get at least 8 twin blades and split them into 2 groups, one for each hydrofoil. Use the planning mode tool to set up orders for our twin blades to focus down the 2 hydrofoils as soon as the betrayal happens. It is important to split the targeting on the hydrofoils in order to not waste any rocket ammo on our twin blades. Once we turn on the allies, use mag satellite to insta-kill the emissary's carrier to prevent it from targeting our base. The rest of the escort becomes sitting ducks. Once the escort is taken care of, we enter phase 2 of the mission, expanding the map westwards and revealing an allied base nearby. A group of sentry bombers will immediately head towards our base and paradrop a large number of infantry. Position our MiGs and twin blades ahead of time to deal with them. Something seems suspicious as we begin our offensive on the allied base, however. All of their key structures and power plants are outside of their turret's range, and the base rebuilds very slowly once destroyed. This is because once we destroy the allied base, we will enter phase 3, exposing the true enemy of the mission, Premier Cherdenko and his volcano fortress. To prepare for our battle with the Premier, we will leave the allied construction yard while we build up an army for the 3rd phase, including a couple Kirovs, a Pox, and Natasha. Once finished, position most of our army along the top edge of the map and destroy the allied construction yard. Premier Cherdenko's base is very well protected, not only guarded with several flak cannons and Tesla towers in key locations, but also launching numerous infantry towards our base using these. While our co-commander handles the enemy attack from sea, we will destroy Premier Cherdenko's new superweapon, the Vacuum Imploder. Most of the enemy's ground attack waves come across this choke point, so we could position a couple of twin blades here to mow them down with ease. The problematic part resides in the enemy bullfrogs and MiGs, which are quite troublesome against our force composition. To counter this, we can position a line of Kirovs at the front of our aircrafts to draw away the aggro. In the meantime, load up a twin blade with Natasha and travel along this path to sneak past the enemy lines. The vacuum imploder itself is protected by several MiGs, but we can use the mag satellite to suck them away. Once they're gone, land the twin blades and use Natasha to destroy the vacuum imploder. The vacuum imploder self-repairs, so this is our only alternative to orbital drops. Some enemy infantry might be aggro towards the twin blade during this time. Use Natasha to take them all out before extracting. From here, use our epochs to take out the super reactors to depower the enemy defenses, and use orbital drops to destroy the enemy airfields. With the enemy air force crippled, we can simply waltz into the volcano base with a few Kirovs to end the mission. With the Empire subjugated and the European allies defeated, only one enemy remains before we reach the precipice of world domination: the capitalist dogs of the USA. To deal the final blow to the allied nations, we must attack the Statue of Liberty, the last shining symbol of capitalist imperialism. If such a monument were to be destroyed, the allied remnants would surely capitulate soon after. The allies, of course, knows this too, and has deployed much of their remaining forces on the Manhattan Island. Try as they might, however, their futile efforts are simply too little too late. The final mission of the Soviet campaign is segmented into 3 phases. In the first phase, we're given 8 terror drones each to distract the defenders by taking out their ore collectors. There are 4 allied ore refineries on an initial island, all of which will continuously rebuild their prospectors if destroyed, meaning that we must eliminate all 4 prospectors simultaneously to complete this stage. Doesn't sound too difficult, but the main obstacle resides in the enemy outpost located at the center of the island. Its war factories will continuously produce and send guardian tanks to hunt down our terror drones. Our priority should be the promotion of a terror drone to heroic veterancy first, as this gives us something to hunt down the units defending the prospectors while reliably shrugging off any chip damage we take. Although enemy vehicles infected with a terror drone will try to move towards their war factories to receive repairs, we can use the terror drone's EMP special ability to immobilize them until they're destroyed. This ability is also helpful for stalling enemy tanks, as they seem to only produce guardian tanks up to a cap, somewhere along 6 to 7 of them, which they will try to maintain, meaning that if we don't destroy any guardian tanks, the allies won't try to make more of them. Switch most of our terror drones to EMP mode, leaving 1 or 2 to rack up some veterancy by chewing on some tanks. A prospector or 2 and a couple guardian tanks later, we should have 2 heroic drones at our disposal. As a side note, I encountered a really annoying bug on this part, where if I issue a movement command to the terror drone right as it infects the vehicle, it will bug out and get stuck inside the vehicle while doing no damage at all. I was able to find a temporary fix later on by spamming the stop button to force it to damage the vehicle, but it was quite annoying regardless. Use the heroic terror drones to clear out the defenders near the ore refineries, then destroy all 4 prospectors at the same time to proceed to the next phase. Now that the distraction is a success and our main invasion force has arrived undetected, we're tasked with the destruction of Fort Bradley. Each of us is given 4 twin blades, 2 Kirovs, and these 4 Tesla tanks, powerful campaign-only units equipped with twin Tesla coils. They may look like the land version of the Stingray, but they're much better units than that. Pull back our terror drones immediately as the enemy will begin ramping up their production once the cutscene finishes, sending groups of Mirage tanks and Athena cannons against us, as well as garrisoning buildings with Javelin soldiers. The Athenas in particular outrange our ground forces by a long mile, meaning that we would have to rely on our twin blades to take care of them. We can use Kirovs to soak up damage from the enemy anti-air units until the twin blades get their promotions. The Tesla tanks too are very easy to level up due to their high burst damage, letting them reliably one-shot enemy tanks with a single volley. Once the initial push is repelled, we can use the outlying structures to promote our remaining Tesla tanks to heroic status. Sneakily take out the war factories and remaining Athena cannons with our twin blades to stop their further production, then run through the base with our Tesla tanks. Before destroying the last structure in the base, we need to move all of our forces to the edge of the island, because once phase 3 starts, the enemy will immediately send a group of Apollo fighters towards us, and we have no anti-air units presently. But if we position our units on the edges of the map first, we can get them to our bases before the Apollo fighters find us, where our barely finished flak cannons will be waiting for them. You'll notice that the cutscene from phase 2 to phase 3 showed several dreadnoughts dying, but in my testing, those did not show up in the end screen, so we're still gunning for a unit loss count of 0 at the end. Still, the killing of our comrades will not go unpunished, and we will make sure to have Special Agent Tanya pay for her actions. From here, the mission is quite simple. Erect a wall of flak cannons and put our Kirovs in front of it to defend against enemy air raids. Add a few Tesla towers against the ground attack waves so that we can put all of our attention on attacking. Constant Apollo fighter threat from the allies means that our trusty Twin Blade and MiG combo can't do much in this mission. We're supposedly given the Vacuum Imploder super weapon as compensation for this, but we won't be needing it. Only one man, or should I say woman, is required for the final step of this mission. Because most of their hangar space is reserved for Apollo fighters, the allies have a distinct lack of bombers on their hands, meaning that Natasha could head out into the battlefield without any escorts. A little bit of micro will be needed when encountering enemy dolphins, but other than that, nothing could stop Natasha from sneaking into the back of the enemy base. Which is perfect for us, as she could call down an airstrike from this location to directly destroy the Statue of Liberty, completely bypassing the main allied defenses. Just remember to drop an Iron Curtain on Tanya to make her pay before you do so.
To you, comrade. The people want to meet their new premier. The future is yours, Commander. The future is yours.